Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Juliet Lamar, and joining us today is Tom Cronkright. He is the CEO at Certifid, and we have some really fun things to talk about today. Well, welcome, Tom.
Juliet, thank you. Happy to be on.
So let's go ahead and start off with talking about Certifid. Give us an overall view of what it is and what you guys do over there.
No, thank you. So Certifid is a identity management platform that allows any business enterprise in just a few seconds to confirm the identity of someone, and then once that identity is confirmed, they're able to share critical information back and forth. Our entry point with Certifid happens to be the real estate sector, where the real estate industry is just facing a daunting challenge, frankly, with a number of wire fraud attacks and successful fraud schemes that are being deployed against everyone in the ecosystem. So buyers, sellers, title companies, lenders, brokers, we're all very much victimized by this. So it was born out of a need that we had. So a little bit of a background, if I can roll into that, is I'm a lawyer by trade turned large title agency owner, fraud victim. And ultimately, from that experience that we had, and we can get into that a little bit more later, we knew that technology needed to be harnessed in a way that could drive insights and drive better decision-making versus what we were using before, or not doing anything at all to confirm or validate identity and wiring instructions before money is changing hands.
Absolutely. And it must have been a very awakening type of fraud that you experienced, because I think a lot of people experience fraud throughout their lives. If you haven't, then you're a very lucky person. But a lot of us simply take it as a risk of the world we live in, and we deal with it and we move on, and it really sucks, but we don't do anything about it. But you did something about it.
Well, it's an interesting question. So I guess all of us can somehow sleep at night knowing that all of our personal information is probably somewhere on the dark web, given all the breaches and things like that. But what hit us directly and exposed a blind spot in our operations. So the wire fraud that took place on us in 2015 cost us $180,000. And when that takes place, you simply as owners write a check for $180,000, and then you try to go collect what somebody took from you, and that's painful enough. But I think the more concerning thing was we were in a collection effort through a 24-month period where we were able to recover a large majority of that sum back. But we're talking about a cyber crime syndicate that spanned over 8 different countries and a cast of characters I don't even know how wide that was. In fact, the most recent FBI roundup, that Operation Wire that was announced earlier last month, highlighted the fraud syndicate that hit us back a few years ago. So I think it's something that I hope nobody has to go through, especially your listening-ship here and the people that subscribe to this. But if you do, you have to take away some significant learning moments, what I say. So we looked at our fraud event as tuition for something that we needed to do in our operational flow, but fraud wasn't mainstream. No one was talking about it. We were kind of first to the party, so to speak. What led us to create Certifid was a completely what I call next level fraud, where we had a borrower that was standing in a bank branch holding wiring instructions that he thought came from us, but in fact were inserted from the fraudster. And when we exposed that fraud, and thankfully no one activated on it, when we exposed that fraud, it was simply the most sophisticated thing that we had ever seen in our lives. And that's what led us to say, okay, hold on a second. If we're going to continue to do what we do, then we need better tools and we need better insights for us to be able to safeguard not only the funds that we're controlling, that we're moving around every day, but also those that are being sent to us from buyers or lenders. And what's interesting that we found as we've rolled out Certified, our industry is not unique. Almost every single industry category in the U.S. is faced with the identical fraud threat that is costing the real estate industry. It's estimated right now it's over $100,000 an hour is what's lost in real estate to wire fraud. Yep, it's a staggering amount, just under $1 billion, and it'll be probably higher than that this year.
I mean, this is, and it's so interesting because, like you said, this is really caught up to us quickly as far as companies goes, personal fraud, all of that, and yet still people are making mistakes. So now that we're completely, why do you think that people, I guess they're taking it seriously? Do people just not know the right steps to take to protect themselves?
I'll be very candid because we've learned a lot as we've been in market since February, and I don't want to speak for all companies because we have a lot of enterprises that have adopted our solution and they did that before they went through a fraud event. But I will say categorically, if we put them all in a blender and you pour out those contents, it's as if they have to go through an actual fraud or a near miss, and then they say, oh, now this is my issue. So maybe before, while they have recognition or like cognitively they understand it's a problem, I think they fall on a continuum of, do I identify that it's my problem? And even if I identify it's my problem, is it a big enough problem that I need to do something about? And I think companies fall along this line of, yeah, I heard about it, not my problem at all, to I just got hit, it's unacceptable, and I could lose my company over this. That's why we created it, because we saw that with what was on the horizon tangibly that we experienced, it was only a matter of time. We'd get hit again, and it could cost us our life's work. So I would say that we have to be honest that this is an issue that is industry-wide, and what's incredibly sinister about how they're deploying these frauds is they typically, it starts with phishing. So someone will respond to an email and they'll put in credentials. So then those credentials lead to the fraudster accessing an email account. They monitor it on average about 6 months. And then they've learned, basically the life or the professional ecosystem of this individual. Who do they do business with? Who's the lender? Who's the supplier? Who's whatever? And then at a critical moment, they manipulate a trusted relationship. So kind of on the backbone of a trusted relationship, they slide in impersonating one of these parties to get somebody to do something they think they're doing with their trusted partner in the transaction, but it's actually a ruse that the fraudster is hatching. So, and they are really, really good. The communications, the timing, the domain expertise. I mean, one thing that I will say is it's not because we're all have our heads in the sand and we're not aware of it. It's this, they continue to step up their level of sophistication and their level of, advocacy in the way that they're convincing the other party. And we're all human, and we're busy, or we're not paying attention, or a combination of a lot of things, and all of a sudden, wire gets sent out, and the money's gone, or whatever happens to be. I'm speaking to wire fraud, but there's all kinds of fraud. But I can't point to one thing that's leading to it, because, but I do believe that more awareness among all the transaction participants in any transaction is key, because they'll always prey on the weakest link every time.
And like you and I were talking about before we got on the air, was that this is the fraudsters. They only have one job, and I love the way you put it. If you want to go ahead and recap that, how they only have one job to do, and we have so many different things in our lives.
Yeah, I explain that as I'm speaking around the country now and say, how many things do we have in our workflow? It could be 30. It could be 300. they have one. And their one thing in their workflow is to have money or assets or information diverted to them. And they are completely agnostic as far as industry or personality or anything. They honestly don't care. None of this is personal. Nobody's truly a target. If you look at it at a higher level, this is just the business that they're in. And one day it could be a manufacturer, and the next day in the same town it could be, somebody that is closing a real estate transaction, and then the next day it could be the auto dealership, all on four corners of the same block. And they just simply don't care. And what we learned through our recovery effort is just, again, how sophisticated and coordinated these syndicates are from multiple different countries. So you almost have people that have specialties in certain areas that allow these frauds to be so successful.
Yeah, and you bring up such a good point. A lot of people are like, well, I'm worried about my banking fraud, but don't worry, I'm checking on that. The real estate aspect of this too is huge, and I think a lot of people don't realize that a fraud occurs in that space as well.
The real estate right now is real estate fraud is at least cybercrime within real estate is the fastest growing fraud in the United States. And the reason why, if you take a step back and think about real estate, it's the only transaction in the United States where it's taking place when it's taking place. So, for example, I'm an agent, and Juliet, you say, hey, I'd like to list my property. So we sign a listing agreement, I put it on the multiple listing service, and guess what? That syndicates globally, right, to all the different sites within 48 hours. So now the world knows that your house is for sale. But it's the next step is that a couple days later or whatever, we get a contract, and I move that status of that listing from listing to pending. The minute I penned a transaction, you've sent a flare up that says, oh, I've got on average 42 days to figure out who are the parties in this transaction and see if I can influence someone in there to do something to my benefit. So, and by the way, all the owner records are public, and a lot of the realtor information is very accessible. So you end up with this large transaction profile, long transaction cycle, where almost all the information on the parties is available within a matter of minutes. Huge problem. Huge problem.
It's like you're out in the middle of the field naked.
Right, no, exactly. No, I call it meat on a stick. You're just sitting there and you're just waiting for, okay, I guess they're focused on this property or they're focused on this agent, and that's the other thing. If they have access to a title company email or a realtor email or a lender email, they're not just working on one property. They're working on multiple properties each month.
Hundreds, yeah.
So
wow.
Yeah, you end up with this nice kind of basket that curates every day of information, and it looks like another purchase agreement came in. I'll start monitoring that one, or I'll shift it over to my buddy for him to monitor. And so, yeah, it's a massive problem in real estate. Massive problem. Biggest problem we're facing right now is just.
So now that we're all completely scared and paranoid,
right.
how can we how can we outsmart the fraudsters, and how can Certified really change the game for us?
So I'll answer the Certified question after this. It starts with more education and awareness around everyone's what I would call digital or internet hygiene. So this idea that we all have a seat at this table, we all have a shared level of responsibility, and we all need to own that level of responsibility. It doesn't do any good if I invest millions of dollars in IT and I've got the safest, most secure walls like banks do, only to be working with, someone else in the transaction that every time a phishing ad pops up, they're like, oh, I wonder where this will take me. This will be interesting. You know what I mean? That defeats, there's total failure in the process. So I think the first and foremost is being honest with the participants in the ecosystem to say, look, what are you doing to protect yourself? And without naming names, we've had situations where we have confirmed that others within the transaction, group have been exposed, and we've stopped doing business with people. I'm talking on the title side. and many others have as well. Certified comes in because what Certified is designed to do and does is it puts at the fingertips of any small business right down to the user level the ability to harness the best technology in the world, literally, to confirm the integrity of a device and the actual person themselves. And we use a multi-layered approach, but what it does in just a few seconds is you're able to say, okay, I need to confirm that Juliet's Juliet because I'm about ready to send her a big batch of money. So average wire transfer in real estate right now is floating around 180 to 200 grand. That's adult money to a lot of people. I mean, that's their life savings. That's their probably the biggest flow of funds in one batch that they'll likely get in their life. So I want to make sure that that's transferred safely. So as a title or a closing company, you're sending me you're sending me by way of email your wiring information, and I need to do two things. I need to confirm that you're you, and frankly, that you sent me this and this information's accurate. And that's exactly what it does. And the same is also true. We expanded the platform earlier this year that now if you're sending me money, right now the buyers are a main target. So you're going to be sending me $200,000 for your cash to close. Well, how do I safely transmit my wiring information to you so that you're not going to end up being duped and somebody slides in, fake wiring instructions that look like they come from me because they have my logo and my name and everything, but yet the account and routing number divert that money, somewhere else. And then what we were able to do because of the way that we align the technology and the level of insights that we decision against is we're able to guarantee each transfer up to $500,000. So it's a significant not only like risk mitigation, but truly a risk allocation on our shoulders that our platform performs and does exactly what it's going to do. So just some case studies or examples. I mean, we picked up devices in about 5 different countries now, everything from Africa to Taiwan to recently we had somebody in Northern Europe. We fail all those. So just if someone's overseas, you just simply, that doesn't work. And a lot of times no one knows in the transaction that somebody left the country. We've had, people's identity confirmed, but yet the bank information received by the enterprise user was the wrong bank information. I can go on and on, but it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. And what it competes against, so the best practice right now, this is the irony of the whole thing, the best practice right now, even for your largest organizations, when you're down to a user level that's moving money and trying to confirm identity, is Google and the phone. That's it. So if I get wiring information from you and we're not using Certified, then I have to triangulate this information by doing a Google lookup, trying to find a number, maybe call a third party to confirm your number or your email credentials, and then the effect, like the goal line of all this is one stranger connecting by phone to another stranger live to confirm that neither one of them are bad people or up to something. And that's pretty circular.
Yeah.
It's not working. I mean, the stats just show it's just simply not working. So
I guess give us, all of this sounds great. Now everyone is like, yes, I need to sign up for Certified immediately. What are the steps to sign up as a company, and what kind of costs are you looking at to get started?
So you can go right to certified.com. So CERTIFID.com. You can click in the upper right. It says Get Started. We have a library of information, white papers and videos, and a lot of things that will add texture and I think value as people are working through this idea of a better identity management and bank account confirmation. We don't have any fees to start up initially. We don't have an onboarding fee or a minimum commitment, or we actually give the first 30 days for free, because speaking as an owner of a company that uses this, all my time now is spent on Certified, but we're still operating Sun Title, is if we don't add value into the workflow or the lives of the people that are using it, then they'll just stop using it. So why make it hard? I'm an attorney. We don't need to make it contractually hard. It's either a value add or it's not, and it will be. So from that standpoint, we'd love to have a conversation with folks, and it's typically your risk managers, your CISOs, your people in compliance, those people that are trying to really make sure the fences and the walls are high and secured, but then also those especially that are looking a little bit broader. So what's an interesting develop in the last 12 months, 18 months, is this idea of a heightened standard of care. So there's litigation around the country that is pending and active that will likely increase the standard of care for enterprises involved in a transaction where a loss occurs. So for example, I'll pick on real estate again. Buyer wires money to a fraudulent title company thinking that the wiring instructions they received came from the title company that's closing their file. Well, several cases around the country right now where have been filed where the plaintiff's lawyer actually named all the transaction participants in the transaction. So you're talking about the real estate broker, the agent, the lender, the title company, maybe even some folks on the other side of the aisle on the seller side on one simple premise, and that's what did you do to notify and protect my buyer, my client, from this type of fraud? Because nobody even mentioned that this fraud was out there and that they should be aware of anything during this process. And that's a challenge. And it's something right now that even in the insurance world, as you have E&O policies and cyber policies and cyber crime riders and social engineering riders and third-party loss riders, I mean, I can go on and on, they're looking at it saying, did we underwrite everything here? No. We have specific exclusions. So a lot of these claims simply aren't covered because it wasn't the enterprise that got breached. It wasn't the enterprise employee that got tricked. It was someone else. So where does my indemnity or cost of defense kick in? So we could talk for hours on that topic. But what I mean to say is it's dynamic. You mentioned, everything is moving. Yes, the puck continues to move in different directions around how we're supposed to do business. And then, by the way, we just want to do our work. That's the other thing, right? We just want to build the cars, or we want to, safeguard the buyers and sellers, or we want to, build the widget, whatever it happens to be. And then we have to worry about this whole thing like someone could take all my money at one time. Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm so glad that there's people out there like you and the people who are working at Certifid who have taken on this problem and really this hunt, this hunt to keep ahead of the fraudsters. Because like you said, it's not your problem until it's your problem. And then you're seeking help and it feels like you're all alone, but we're not. We have these programs in place and it's not desolate. It really is just, we need to remind ourselves each day, like you said, we are all responsible. There are lots of people and they're going to go for the weakest link.
They will. And I'll mention this is that, there's no one silver bullet either. It's a layered approach, and this cybersecurity is not a destination. I think it's a journey now. We're never going to be off this journey because as we change our behavior and we, weld the lid on one area, all of a sudden the top's going to blow off in some other area. And I hate to say that because I'm an optimist and I believe that people intend to do good things, but there's also this force out there that suggests that, they're not in it for the same reasons. And I think it's hardware and software and people and process and these things that have to come together to create a culture of compliance and curiosity within the organization. And I think that's one thing where you'll never have a zero risk profile, but I do believe that as you layer these components in, your risk profile is reduced. And look, they're human too. So if you're the most secure house on the block with dogs chained to the front and big lights and wired fencing and this and that, they're probably not going to pick your lock. They're probably going to pick the lock down the street. And that has been shown to play out. But what I will say, though, what Certifid does is at least the fraud could be taking place for weeks or months, but at the end of the day, we're going to stop them from getting paid. We're just going to stop it cold right at the 1 yard line and say, not this time. So try something else, try a different industry, try a different company, try a different, consumer profile, but you're not getting paid on this one. You wasted your time.
And the more time they waste, the less people they can hit.
No, that's it. I completely agree. It's a great way to look at it. Yeah.
Well, Tom, it has been such a pleasure talking with you here today and learning and scaring myself into a lot more information. But knowledge is a wonderful thing, and I'm so happy that you shared all your insight with us today.
No, and I appreciate you taking on a topic like this. No one wants to talk about it, but you can't hide behind this anymore. It's just so ubiquitous, and we have to have more conversations and awareness like this, because it'll keep everyone a little more astute and hopefully in tune of things that are out of the ordinary when they come up, that are probably bad people trying to do bad things.
I find it incredibly interesting, and I like having these slightly uncomfortable conversations, because there is something to say about being uncomfortable and the growth that you take through being uncomfortable and having these hard conversations. It's quite incredible to see the transformation of companies and people when faced with these kind of problems. So
yeah, I agree. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on. This is great.
Absolutely. We'll have to have you on again soon sometime.
Would love to.
That was Tom Cronkright. He is the CEO at Certifid. You can find them at certifid.com, CERTIFID.com. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been Juliette Lamar with Future Tech Podcast.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.